The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
I have to be honest with you. For the last couple of weeks, when I walk into this building and I get in front of this camera, I swear I feel like I'm in the movie network. I feel like Howard Beale. Americans are mad as hell. When are you going to, how much more can Americans take? Every single day berating people, lying. First it's a hoax. And then all along I knew it was serious. I knew it was a pandemic. How much more, how many people have to die? The number of people who are sick includes the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who is now in intensive care tonight and has turned over power to his foreign secretary. I've said this before, this virus doesn't care who you are, it doesn't care if you are a world leader, it doesn't care about your politics, it doesn't care what you believe in. But let's not forget, it was just 1 month ago today that Kellyanne Conway said this about testing and whether the coronavirus was being contained.
The HHS Secretary said this morning that we're ramping up with the commercial labs.
Why didn't they do it while it was contained? Get ahead of it.
It is being contained. And do you not think it's being contained?
It's not being contained.
Hello.
Wasn't then, it isn't now. On March 6th, that very day that Kellyanne Conway said the virus is being contained, there were fewer than 20 deaths in this country. And now, more than 10,000 Americans are dead. That is a fact. A terrible fact. Not an alternative fact. Americans, are you mad as hell? How much more are you going to take?
Oh, for God's sake.
See, it's everybody is saying this now. It's not just me. And yes, I've been a huge fan of Patty Chayefsky and of Network and Howard Beale and Faye Dunaway's performance and Peter Finch. But this is like being in the movie. It's just unbelievable. The entire national news, from newspapers to cable news to nightly news, network news, they're all sitting there saying, how much more of this crap fest can we take that this man does every single night? Now, I don't know how many of you have taken to turning off the crap fest, the supposed coronavirus task force briefings. Last night, the media apparently is talking to, and by media I mean the network news, I mean the reporters, the White House Correspondents Association, all of these people who try very hard to bring facts to the American people about the situations in which we find ourselves from day to day. They work their tails off. I don't know how many of you appreciate what journalists do. But it's a tough job. It's time consuming. It's a lot of, interviewing. It's a lot of reading, and it's an extraordinary amount of writing that goes into telling the American people how to orient themselves with facts, how to conduct your lives with facts, and not just about a pandemic, but in case of an invasion, in case of an attack on, let's say New York City, the World Trade Center, something of that nature, an anthrax attack, or the bombing of an unarmed nation, the deployment of, hundreds of thousands of troops because a president thinks that aluminum tubes are not used to make lawn furniture, but instead are for centrifuges. So, they try to orient you, and they are being lied to every single day. Last night, the coronavirus task force briefing was supposed to be conducted by the scientists. It was supposed to be a fact-driven, science-y task force briefing. And the president of the United States literally walked in and hijacked it because the network news, the cable news, they had a lot of people had decided, everybody in the media had decided that they were going to not cover Trump's ranting, his lying, his bullying, his blaming, his lack of problem solving. And they were going to only show the Faucis, the Debbie Burks. They were only going to show people who coordinate materials, people who are responsible for coordinating materials, people who would respond to an Inspector General's report that came out yesterday that said that there is a severe and widespread shortage of everything medical, everything from tests to gloves to masks to everything. Ventilators, all of the things medical professionals need, all of the things that patients require. There are severe and widespread shortages. This report came after it was conducted March 23rd to March 27th with administrators from more than 300 hospitals across 46 states. Also Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico, the territories, right? And it said, quote, the emergence of COVID-19 created unprecedented challenges for the U.S. hospital system. HHS Assistant Inspector General for Evaluation and Inspections, Ann Maxwell, told CNN, the role of this report is to provide a platform for these experiences in a point of time. It accounts for the shortages that hospitals are facing all across this nation. It shows what they did to try and obtain equipment, that they went to paint stores and other retailers, that they went online, that they went to nail salons looking for face masks, that they went to any place you could possibly imagine to try to get protective gear. Home supply stores, paint stores, auto body supply shops, beauty salons, nail salons, Amazon, Light in the Box, Alibaba, Banggood. They went anywhere they could go to try and order, and the delays that they were being told they would see was 3 to 6 months for anything like surgical or N95 masks. It also told the story of how many hospitals were sent ridiculously unusable material. One health system, which accounts for more than one hospital, said it received 1,000 masks from federal and state governments, half of which were for children and were not usable by any adult. Another hospital got N95 masks from a strategic reserve, but the elastic bands had dry rotted and were unusable. One hospital said it received 2 shipments from the feds, and it had personal protective equipment that expired 10 years ago in 2010. The woman who signed this particular Inspector General's report is the Deputy Assistant Inspector General. Her name is Christy Grimm. Christy has a master's degree from NYU, and she also graduated the Harvard University's Kennedy School of Senior Managers in Government. And Donald Trump decided to trash her.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, The Randi Rhodes Show.
This is how the president started, hijacking at the beginning of the press conference yesterday, which was really supposed to be a Corona task force update from scientists. But the president of the United States inserted himself, and he decided he was going to address the issue of the Prime Minister of England, Boris Johnson's COVID condition. Now, as you know, yesterday, Boris Johnson, after having at least 10 days of fever, was not getting better. And the government the day before yesterday of the UK told us that just for safety purposes, just to follow, we're going to admit him. They admitted him into St. Thomas, and they were supposedly monitoring him. And of course, the next report was Boris Johnson is in ICU. And that the Foreign Secretary, or Secretary of State, as we call that position, who is next in line in the UK's government, in their parliamentary form of government, would now be deputized and would now take over. So Donald Trump decided he would, tell Boris Johnson that, Rudy Giuliani and Laura Ingraham and all the other kooks he's been listening to, Dr. Oz and others who have been telling him, hydroxychloroquine, it cleans out the lungs, it does everything, it will make you well, it's, the snake oil of the 21st century. All that this man was missing yesterday was a covered wagon, okay? And there's much reporting out there about who he is listening to. And he is listening to, seriously, Laura Ingraham, who's bringing in doctors from New York or Long Island to tell her that, it works and it's really good. And Dr. Oz, who is now a Fox News analyst, medical analyst, Dr. Oz has had very, very severe letters written about him in the American medical journals saying that, he has given out more than his share of really bad information to millions of people. This is who Trump is listening to. And so he decides he's going to hijack this press briefing, and he's going to tell Boris Johnson, don't worry, American Big Pharma is flying to London, even though they have offices in London. I couldn't even follow this. It was so crazy. I'll let you listen to just his 1 minute thing about Boris Johnson and how he's going to cure him, right?
I know you don't want to talk about the Inspector General.
No. This is
And I've asked two of the leading companies, these are brilliant companies, Ebola, AIDS, others, they've come with the solutions and just have done incredible jobs. And I've asked them to contact London immediately. They have offices in London, the major companies, but more than major, more than size, they're genius. And I had a talk with 4 of them today. And they speak a language that most people don't even understand.
What?
But I understand something, that they've really advanced therapeutics and therapeutically, and they have arrived in London already. Their London office has whatever they need, and we'll see if we can be of help. We've contacted all of Boris's doctors, and we'll see what is going to take place, but they are ready to go. But when you get brought into intensive care, that gets very, very serious with this particular disease. So the 2 companies are there, and with what they are talking about, and it's rather complex and has had really incredible results. We're working with the FDA and everybody else, but we are working with London with respect to Boris Johnson.
What? They have London offices, but they're flying to London. He talked to 4 guys, but 2 guys are going to London where there already is an office, and it's like hydroxychloroquine, good for what ails you. We're sending that to Boris so he could pay 10 times more than what the NHS is. I don't even understand why. What they speak a language that no one understands, but I understand it, and it's it's a great thing. It's my patented miracle cure, and I know this because Rudy Giuliani and Laura Ingraham told me. I don't know what the hell that was about, but then it degenerated. As soon as he showed up at the podium, of course, the reporters wanted to ask him about this Inspector General's report, okay? That was written by the Inspector General for Health and Human Services and signed off on by the Deputy Inspector General, a woman named Christy Grimm, who has been working inside our government for 20 years. Yes. Christy Grimm started working at the Office of the Inspector General as a program evaluator in 1999. She later served as a senior program analyst in the Office of the Inspector General's Office of Evaluation and Inspections. She is responsible for designing groundbreaking work to improve the quality and safety in hospitals, to stop unqualified providers from enrolling in Medicaid, to prevent fraud, and improve the process for Medicare appeals when people disagree with the decisions that Medicare makes on payments, okay? So this woman has worked for the last 21 years of her life in the Office of Inspector General at HHS, okay? And Donald Trump is asked about the report that she signed off on that was written by the Inspector General. And it begins this way. And this is a Fox News reporter, by the way.
I know you don't want to talk about the Inspector General report, but testing is still a big issue in this country. When can hospitals expect?
Put the slide up again, please.
When can hospitals expect to receive a quick turnaround of these test results?
Are you ready? Hospitals can do their own testing also.
Oh my God.
States can do their own testing. States are supposed to be doing testing. Hospitals are supposed to be doing testing. Do you understand that? We're the federal government. Listen to me. We're the federal government. We're not supposed to stand on street corners doing testing. They go to doctors. They go to hospitals. They go to the state. The state is a more localized government. You have 50 of them, and they can go 50 within here. You also have territories, as you know. And they do the testing. And if you look at the chart, if you take a look, did they put it up? Yeah. Just take a look. And these are testing, and the results are now coming in very quickly. Initially speaking, the tests were old, obsolete, and not really prepared. We have a brand new testing system that we developed very quickly, and that's your result. And you should say, congratulations, great job, instead of being so horrid in the way you ask a question. Please, go ahead.
Oh, my God. All right, so you know that the problem with the testing is supplies. Supplies are short. Swabs, yes, America is short of Q-tips. Swabs, long swabs that go in, you know. And the reagents, which we discussed, the reagents that separate out the RNA. Oh my God. And he literally tells this woman she's horrid. She's horrid for asking the question.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Okay, so a reporter had the nerve to ask about testing failures, a Fox News reporter, and he told her, you should say, congratulations, great job, instead of being so horrid in the way you answer a question. And that tells you all you need to know about why we have such a catastrophe in this country, okay? This is what a sociopathic narcissist ranting about his own bizarre view of his extraordinary work while all the experts are cowed into silence looks like. You should say congratulations. Okay, everybody on a ventilator, raise your hand. And then it deteriorated from there. Jonathan Karl from ABC, who is at the pinnacle of his career. I mean, if White House correspondent is the pinnacle of a journalistic career when you cover politics, which it is, it deteriorated so unbelievable. Okay, listen.
This question of the HHS Inspector General, and by the way, her name was Christy Grimm, and it wasn't so much her opinion, but they interviewed 323 different hospitals.
Well, it still could be her opinion. When was she appointed? When was she appointed?
Oh my God!
I'm not sure when she was
appointed. Would you do me a favor? Let me know.
I'll check.
No, let me know now. I have to know now, John. Let me know now. Because we are doing an incredible job in testing.
Oh my God.
We are doing a better job than anybody in the world right now in testing. There's nobody close. And other nations admit this. Other nations have admitted it very strongly. Other nations are calling us, wanting to know about our testing. Let me know when she was appointed.
No one is calling us asking about our testing. Trust me, nobody is calling us. No one is calling us to find out why we're short on swabs and reagents and why we only have 18,000 of these rapid test machines in this country. Why people are in the hospital waiting for results for 6 or 7 days. 6 or 7 days, meaning that the healthcare providers, the healthcare givers, the angels that walk among us, the nurses, the doctors, have to use PPE around these patients while they wait for the test results. Okay? And this HHS Inspector General's report clearly shows that there are shortages of everything required to do testing. Okay? Jonathan Karl pushed him a little further, and Trump exploded.
Good tests that are coming up.
How long has that person been in government?
Did serve in the previous administration.
Oh, you didn't tell me that. Oh, I see. You didn't tell me that, John. You didn't tell me that. Did serve in the previous administration. You mean the Obama administration? Oh my God. Thank you for telling me that. See, there's a typical fake news deal.
You asked me when she was appointed. I told you when she was appointed.
You're a third-rate reporter, and what you just said is a disgrace, okay? You asked me, you said, sir, just got appointed. Take a look at what you said now. I said, when did this person, how long in government? Well, it was appointed in the Obama administration. Thank you very much, John. Thank you very much. You will never make it.
Holy crap. Oh, my God. So here's the thing. First of all, Christy Grimm was appointed as the assistant or associate inspector general by Donald Trump. By Donald Trump. She was appointed in January of 2020 by Donald Trump. She has been working in the office of the inspector general since 1999 for Republican presidents and Democratic presidents. But this man is so interested in making you blame another president for his failure to prepare for and disseminate the required materials to combat and also downplayed this pandemic for months. He has been president. The election is 210 days from today, and he has been president for every one of those days before. So it's almost 4 years. The man cleared the shelves and sent all the stuff to foreign countries. He sent tons of stuff to China. He sent tons of stuff to Thailand. He sent tons of stuff out of this country, and he cleared the shelves, and then he got stuck with nothing, and now he's blaming Barack Obama. Wow. After all these years of his presidency, I mean, I could, and then to trash a White House correspondent, an ABC White House journalist like Jonathan Karl, who's at the peak of his success. I mean, this is what, if you're a journalist that covers the White House, being part of the White House press corps is good. It's success. This is why we have the failure we have. He called him a third-rate reporter, said he would never make it. Make what? What wouldn't he make? And you could just imagine him saying this to like a model. You can imagine him saying this to like a young actress, a Miss Teen USA. Oh, you'll never make it. You'll never make. I mean, it's just so, it's so harsh a thing to say to anybody. And you know he said it to so many people. And you know he has done this to so many people, that he has bullied them and demeaned them. I just cannot believe what he did yesterday with this this crap fest. And you know what? People are saying, well, you shouldn't watch it because, you know, he lies and yes, but that's exactly the point. when you watch it, you realize how we got here. You realize why so many people are infected. You realize why so many people can't get tests. You realize why so many we cannot open up the country, and this is the important part of all of this. This country cannot go back to work. This country cannot go back to the movies. This country can't go back to sports unless and until we have real testing. And now the testing has to include serology, meaning it has to include tests to see if people have developed antibodies. And if those antibodies are present, they won't get reinfected, and then you could start letting those people go back to work because they have some sort of immunity. We don't know how long that immunity would last. We have to keep on looking at their blood, at their serology. We have to keep on looking to see, do the antibodies, is it like chickenpox, you get it once and you're done? Or is it something that you only have a certain amount of immunity to for a certain amount of years, and then you need a follow-up, like, I don't know, a measles or something like that? Do you know, he's such a incurious piece of crap who doesn't like to concentrate very long on any damn thing. He just rather listen to hacks and cranks and crooks and thieves who tell him, hey, if you take this magic pill, you'll wake up off the ventilator and you'll just walk out of the hospital. Yeah, tell it to Boris Johnson. What does he think, that Britain uses leeches in their medicine still? Or is it still medieval barber times over there? Who the hell does this man think he is? And when is the GOP going to get serious about saying enough? Enough, get rid of him. He's got to go. Because pretty soon the White House press corps is going to be made up of a whole bunch of Mike Pence lookalikes who are just going to swoon over him and say how dreamy he is. Give me the name of the Inspector General. Could politics enter into that? And by politics, he means facts. He means Obama.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
You asked me when she was appointed. I told you when she was appointed.
You're a third-rate reporter, and what you just said is a disgrace, okay? You asked me, you said, sir, just got appointed. Take a look at what you said now. I said, when did this person, how long in government? Well, it was appointed in the Obama administration. Thank you very much, John. Thank you very much. You will never make it.
That is your president.
That is your president.
Did you ever think you'd hear the President of the United States react that way? Ever? I know some of you think it's cute. It's not. It's sad. It's sad. What is that?
What is that? See,
anyways, just listen to when the president says, and what he says in response to a perfectly legitimate question about testing.
When can hospitals expect to receive a quick turnaround of these test results?
Are you ready? Hospitals can do their own testing also. States can do their own testing. States are supposed to be doing testing. Hospitals are supposed to be doing testing. Do you understand that? We're the federal government. Listen to me. We're the federal government. We're not supposed to stand on street corners doing testing.
Again, the President of the United States. We're not supposed to stand on street corners doing testing? 1 month ago today, 1 month ago, the President said this, listen closely, at the CDC.
Anybody that needs a test gets a test. They're there. They have the tests. And the tests are beautiful.
Tests were beautiful. Well, then it was anybody that needs a test gets a test. Now when a Fox News reporter asks, by the way, a Fox News reporter asks when testing will be prevalent, the president points a finger at the states and calls the reporter who dared to ask him the question horrid.
Initially speaking, the tests were old, obsolete, and not really prepared. We have a brand new testing system that we developed very quickly, and that's your result. And you should say, congratulations, great job, instead of being so horrid in the way you ask a question.
Horrid. And then there's what the president says tonight about his calls with governors. Calls, he says, are great, perfect. Perfect. Where have we heard that before about a perfect call?
If you look at what's happening, and I'm even surprised, the governors are saying all good things, but the Democrat governors, and a couple of rhinos, frankly, they're rhinos, that's all they are, one rhino in particular, but the governors are saying great things. He had a call that lasted 2 hours today. I heard about the call, not just from Mike. It was a perfect call.
Okay, so listen to what the president said about calls with the governors just a week and a half ago.
I'm a different type of person. I say, Mike, don't call the governor of Washington. You're wasting your time with him. Don't call the woman in Michigan. Well, it doesn't make any difference what happens.
Call the governor of Washington?
No, you know what I say? If they don't treat you right, I don't call.
Okay, there is your president, and everybody is saying the same thing. There are no more words for the level of malignant, narcissistic personality disorder that are on display at that podium each and every night instead of, and you know, when you have the scientists, when you have the doctors, you have the fact finders, you have the logistics people, when you have, real people who are trying to do things to mitigate this, he pushes them out of the way. He pushes them off the stage. Anthony Fauci tried the other night to tell everybody something about hydroxychloroquine being anecdotal stories, being stories that, maybe a doctor saw this or a doctor saw that and this person turned around, or but that there are no scientific studies at all. And Donald Trump wouldn't let him answer the question. He wouldn't let Fauci answer.
You also weigh in on this issue of hydroxychloroquine. What do you think about this, and what is the medical evidence?
That question?
Yeah. Well, I
maybe
love to hear from the doctor.
15 times. You don't have to ask.
He's your medical expert, correct?
He's answered that question 15 times.
He answered that question 15 times. He's not going to answer the question about, hydroxychloroquine being something that's anecdotally being spoken about. That there are, I don't know what to tell you except that we're in this mess. We're in this mess because his attitude for days now, well, prior to accepting that people were literally contracting and dying, and that something had to be done, and that the only thing this man had to offer was to lock yourself up in your own house. There was nothing to offer, nothing at all. There were no tests to figure out who had it and who didn't, who we could contact trace to, isolate just those people. No, the whole country was told, just go and lock yourself up. Just go ahead and do that. That's all we got for you, right? And then this hawking and this selling of a bullcrap thing that Rudy Giuliani told him about, that Laura Ingraham told him about, that crazy people are telling him about this stuff. That's what you should do. That's what you should do. And the governors constantly telling you, they are pitting us one against the other. One state is bidding against another state, and then in the end we all lose because FEMA is buying everything. And he's sitting on all this stuff, and God only knows where he's going to send it or why he would send it over there but not over here, and blah, 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 right? But there is a little tell today. And that little tell has to do with something I brought up yesterday about the state of Wisconsin. The state of Wisconsin has a governor named Tony Evers, who is a Democrat, but his entire legislature is a majority Republican legislature. And Tony Evers tried to issue an executive order, but he told the people of Wisconsin, I can't do this alone. I cannot. I don't have the authority to postpone, cancel, or change the date of an election unilaterally. I don't. So I need the legislature to act and to support me in the decision not to hold an election today, in Wisconsin, in the middle of a pandemic. And the Republican legislature in Wisconsin refused to act. They refused to support him or disagree with him or debate or do anything at all. They just sat there idly. Some of them just boycotted the legislature, didn't even show up. And so it went to the court. And the Supreme Court of Wisconsin ruled Republicans for, not Republicans 2, 4-2. No, we're going to have an election. In-person voting. Now, I told you 7,000 poll workers had called in. They were not going to be available. Also, Wisconsin, in Milwaukee, big cities like Milwaukee, Waukesha, other cities, had said, Madison too, that they were, Milwaukee, for example, 180 polling places were now going to be 5. 5 for the whole city. Over 1 million people, 5 polling places. What could go wrong in a pandemic with only 5 polling places being open in a city that normally has 180 polling places? The Supreme Court of the United States weighed in yesterday, but not on the changing of the date of the election. They weighed in on whether or not people who had requested absentee ballots as late as Friday would have to deliver them in person today to have them counted if they hadn't already mailed them in. And the Supreme Court, 5-4, Republicans or conservatives against liberal or progressives, split yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court did, and said now they have to bring them in person. And now you have Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin, Waukesha, Wisconsin. You've got these people. I could show you some video footage. Here is the only polling place in Waukesha.
In Wisconsin, we have 6 minutes left to go before the polls open. Here's
look at these people standing in line, one on top of the other.
We have what you need to know, so many changes. We'll explain it all coming up.
1 polling place in Waukesha, 5 polling places in Milwaukee. Okay? What could possibly go wrong? Let me tell you what could possibly go wrong. You are going to have more spread of this virus than you would have had if the Republicans trusted the people to vote by mail. And do the whole thing by mail or postpone it till June 9th, which is what Governor Evers wanted to do. But oh no, oh hell no, no, no. And Donald Trump said out loud, hey, if you let people vote by mail, you'll never have a Republican president ever again.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
While interviewing doctors in other parts of the hospital, nearly constant overhead announcements that another patient has coded.
Room 815.
Those announcements for patients already admitted, not those in the ER.
Can I just stop you for a second? This
Nursing station 62.
This is the 5th or 6th code 99.
Code 99 is typically a rare event. We're having, I would say, 10 code 99s every 12 hours at least.
Well, we've been here for about 30, 40 minutes, and that's the 5th or 6th one.
And a lot of that, what that represents, is calling for a team to put an individual, a patient, on a breathing machine.
Here's another report from another doctor who was finishing up his shift on Saturday.
It's the end of the shift. Saturday, April 4th. Just a horrendous shift. We have right now 21 ventilators running here in this emergency department. In the hospital, we have roughly 90 ventilators running, and we only have a few left to spare. Another medical notification coming into the trauma bay right now. Medical notification. We've been getting them back to back. Most of them all respiratory related. People who can't breathe. People who are drowning in their own secretions. The humanity is just horrible. Horrible. Some people didn't make it today. And I guess that's just, we did our best. That's all I can say. It's not been a good day. Really horrible.
It's Dr. Ernie Patty. There are no words for this. And you know, Donald Trump keeps standing on that stage and keeps saying, you know, crazy, self-serving, narcissistic, I'm doing a great job. You know, people on your ventilators, give me a thumbs up. He is insane. He doesn't understand what his role is as president of the United States. I don't think he ever understood what his role is as a human being, let alone as the leader of the free world. I don't think he understands. I don't think he wants to understand. I don't think he can understand. I don't think he processes information in the same way that a normal, sane, lucid human being processes information. He doesn't react to information that doesn't affect him. He didn't react to this pandemic until the stock market crashed. Up until that point, him and his propaganda ministry over at Fox News were downplaying it and saying there was no reason for you not to, go to the beach, to enjoy yourself, to get out there, to do things, to go spend money, to go fly. You know, he keeps on telling you that it was his early action on the China, banning travel from China, except that he didn't ban travel from China. 480,000 people were allowed to swarm into this country after his so-called ban on Chinese travel to the United States. I mean, nothing he says is the truth. And now you understand that the death cult is encouraging people and telling people if they want to exercise their franchise, if they want to have a say in who their Supreme Court is, because you got this Justice Kelly, who's on the ballot, who is the, Chief Justice in Wisconsin. He's the one that's, oh, no, we have to vote today. We have to, because he's got skin in the game. And you've got these people who don't care who dies to cast a ballot, to go out there, to crowd. I can't for the life of me tell you how these elites view us. You know that expression, the unwashed masses. Well, now think about it as you're washing your hands 80,000 times a day. That's how they view you. They view you as disease spreaders. They view you as a problem. They view you as, if it weren't for you, they wouldn't be having these problems. If it wasn't for you, you lousy supermarket grocery clerk, who, by the way, they're getting sick. Major supermarket chains are starting to report the very first coronavirus deaths, employee deaths. Trader Joe's in Scarsdale, Long Island. Scarsdale, one of the 5 towns. That's one of the richest places in New York, Scarsdale. That's where Joan Rivers was from. A giant store in Largo, Maryland. 2 Walmart employees from the same Chicago area store have died of COVID-19. Supermarkets are considered essential, and they remain open, as does the 5 polling places in Milwaukee that are supposed to serve what 180 polling places usually do in an election. I mean, so you have thousands of grocery employees reporting to work, and a lot of the workers are saying they just don't have protective gear. They deal with hundreds of customers a day. Dozens and dozens of grocery workers have tested positive for coronavirus. You got people on the Comfort now. You got a sailor on the Comfort who's tested positive. The Comfort. They got 50 patients on the Comfort. At Walmart, they're trying to hire 150,000 new workers. Kroger is adding 10,000. And they're offering you $2 an hour extra, everybody. $80 a week for a 40-hour week, but you won't ever get to 40 because then they'd have to give you benefits. So a little more than minimum wage to risk your life. But the grocery stores don't want the employees wearing masks or gloves. It might make the customers anxious. So instead, you have some grocery stores installing plexiglass sneeze guards at the cash registers. Some stores are having the customers stand 6 feet apart while they wait in line. Walmart and Kroger have just started checking employees' temperatures. There are strikes at Amazon, Instacart, and let me tell you something. Amazon is servicing hospitals. Seriously, Amazon and other online retailers are sending their stuff to hospitals. So now, Amazon is like the Sears catalog used to be. You look at the item, you think about the item, you put the item, you say, I want that item, and then, a couple months later, you'll get the item. Trader Joe's in Brooklyn and Philly are temporarily closed, or they were yesterday, for cleaning and sanitizing. Illinois Walmart employees Philip Thomas, 48, Wando Evans, 51, both of whom worked at the park, the Evergreen Park store. They died. Lalani Jordan, 27 years old, a greeter at Giants Campus Way South Store in Largo, Maryland, died. And she said, Mommy, I'm going to work because no one else is going to help the senior citizens get their groceries. Her mother, Miss Shepard, told the Washington Post, quote, she only stopped going to work when she could no longer breathe. Her last day of work was March 16th. She tested positive for corona in late March and died on Wednesday last week. The company has cleaned and disinfected the store. This is because we don't have a president who could tell everybody to go stock up on 6 weeks worth of whatever you need, go get it, and then everybody does the same thing at the same time. They stay home until somebody calls them and says, your number is ready, come get your test, or we'll come to you, or whatever it is, or drive through over here, get your test, and we'll figure out what to do.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
What the White House has done is created, they call this the air bridge, where they're bringing stuff back from China to the United States, and then they're delivering it to private companies in the United States, not to the states. And they're letting all of us bid against each other for those goods that are owned by the private companies. So we've just gone around all that and gone directly to manufacturers wherever we could.
Oh, my God. That's the governor of Illinois, Governor Pritzker. That is amazing. So we sent all this stuff to China, and now China is sending it back to us. But the president is telling them to send our stuff back to companies so that each state can get into a bidding war with each other and drive the price of these goods up, and then FEMA swoops in and bids the highest price, and he gets his stuff back. What's the game here? What is that? What is that about? Now, Donald Trump has been standing on a stage for days now saying, the state's lost. Too bad, the state's lost. Because, with Donald Trump, everything is, he has to win, everybody has to lose. It's always a zero-sum game, right? And he's standing on a stage going, states waited, they lost.
What happens, though, when states are bidding against each other on those markets?
Well, they have that, and they have to work that out. What they should do is they should have, long before this pandemic arrived, they should have been on the open market just buying. There was no competition. You could have made a great price. The states have to stock up. It's like one of those things. They waited. They didn't want to spend the money because they thought this would never happen. And their shelves, in some cases, were bare. And by the way, in some cases, they weren't. They were beautifully serviced. They did a good job. But in some cases, their shelves were bare. So the best thing they can do is when times become normalized, and they will, hopefully soon, And actually, you're going to have a lot of excess material because so much is being done right now in terms of protective gear, protective outfits. A lot's being done. It's going to be, within 6 months, it's going to be sold for the right price. They got to stack up for the next time. But we are doing that, and the Admiral has done a fantastic job. Senator Schumer wrote a letter today, and he says, you should put a military man in charge. I said, well, Chuck, if you knew a little bit more, we have one of the most highly respected people in the military, the Admiral. This is what he does, too, very professionally. And he's in charge, but Chuck didn't know that.
He's in charge of getting our stuff back after we sent it to other countries, especially China. So the Admiral is in charge of getting it back, but having it shipped to companies, and then states who waited too long and lost, according to Donald Trump, have to bid against each other for these items, but FEMA swoops in at the end and outbids all of them. I don't know. It's going to take a while before I can process, the level of the stealing and the gouging and the ugliness. Emma in Oregon. Emma. All right. Patrick in California.
Hi, Randy.
Hey.
Exasperated sigh. I wanted to talk about Wisconsin, but before I do, oh my God, Randy, these daily propaganda spectacles, like every day, but specifically yesterday, I mean, you know you're way past the point of no return, lost down the rabbit hole, when your president starts spouting what sounds like discarded dialogue from the Mean Girls script. I mean, should we be taking bets for the future date when he blurts out, I know you are, but what am I?
Yeah, really. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Wisconsin, to me, should demonstrate, as if we needed another tawdry, horrific example of why, with the Supreme Court overturning the governor and the Republican legislature not backing up the governor to postpone the election because of a pandemic. I mean, this should demonstrate once and for all, again, as if we needed another glaring example, that it doesn't matter what level of government, whether it's local, state, federal, county, or what branch, judicial, legislative, executive, managerial, supervisory, consulting, etc. It doesn't matter what part of government. It could be your local city council member, any Republican, anywhere in any stage of government. They're just all ridiculous, incompetent, shallow, evil slime. They're slime. They're scum. And having everyone who's eligible to vote be able to actually vote would mean there's never another Republican president ever elected again, ever. Exactly. Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes, please.
But they're pro-life.
The fetus cult. The cult of the fetus.
It is. They love the fetus. They hate the child. There's no question about that. Yeah, it's a cult.
Carlin did a great rant in '96 about that.
Yeah.
Pro-life, they're killing doctors.
I know. This is like a really bad movie come to life. I was saying yesterday that the woman who consulted the doctors, who consulted with the scriptwriters for the movie Contagion, now say they got one thing wrong, and that was they never imagined a government as cruel as the one we have that refused to come to the rescue of a dying, sick, virus-infected nation. They just never could imagine somebody at that level of insanity/cruelty.
Sometimes I think, the only thing missing is Peter Sellers and Stanley Kubrick. But, I don't know, could anybody do this justice? Like, could Vonnegut or Douglas Adams or Pynchon or Tom Robbins do anything with this? If Rod Sterling was alive, would he just throw his hands up and say, F it, I got nothing?
I know. I keep thinking about Rod Sterling, and I think about guys like Harlan Ellison, and I think about guys like Ray Bradbury. I think about, Huxley and Orwell, who's, been proven right 80 billion, million, 496 times already. Yeah.
Well, that's because the Republicans use what should be a cautionary sci-fi tale and use it as a blueprint.
Oh, you better hope Margaret Atwood isn't involved. Oh,
right.
Oh, my God. All right. Well, listen, I hear you're outraged.
Love you more.
I love you more. I do. I just don't know, look, all we can do, the only thing we can do is, I swear this sounds so trite, is wash your hands. Wash your hands, stay in the house. If you have to go out, wear a mask. And the mask is to protect others from you. That's what the mask is about. The mask is to keep whatever is going on in your, freaking, your throat, your nose, your eyeballs, whatever it is, right? It's to keep that with you and not to spread it to somebody else. Because no one knows. No one knows nothing. We don't know down here. We don't know nothing about who's got it, who doesn't, who... And if we did, this is the simple freaking truth. If we knew, let's say I knew I had it. If I knew, I would be able to tell who I came in contact with, and each of those people would then be able to self-quarantine, monitor their health, take their temperature for 14 days. And so on and so on. And the ones who test negative could actually leave their homes. Can you imagine?
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
There's a possibility. And I say it. What do you have to lose? I'll say it again. What do you have to lose?
Your life.
Take it. I really think they should take it. But it's their choice. And it's their doctor's choice or the doctors in the hospital. But hydroxychloroquine. Try it.
Oh, he's such an he's psycho. I mean, I don't know how you look at that. I don't know how you look at that as a president. This is not a guy on the street. This is the president of the United States, who is the commander-in-chief and is responsible for the entire country, the entire, defense mechanisms of the United States. He's responsible for Health and Human Services. He's responsible for the National Institutes of Health. He's responsible for the CDC. He's responsible for the DOD, the NSC, all the intel, the CIA, the DIA. I mean, how do you look at that and say, Jonathan Turley, that he's not insane, and that reporting that he is insane is somehow not reporting? I don't know. Pete in Tennessee.
Oh, Randi.
Yes, sir.
It's so nice to speak to the liberal goddess. Anyway, I just wanted to, I'm a bread man, and I'm in the grocery stores a lot, and I just thought I would comment on, I live on the outlying areas of Tennessee, not about half an hour out of Nashville, but a lot of 70% Trump. And, people don't have masks. I asked one of the workers, when you're going to get you a mask? And he said, oh, no. When God takes me, I'll be ready, And
but
then
it's not just him. Did you tell him? When God takes him, if he's ready to go, good for him. But you know what? The person standing next to him might not be so ready.
Well, that's the thing is, before he walked off, and then another lady was like, yeah, that's my same view, and I'm just like, oh, God.
That is so sad.
Yeah. And it's, and then I kind of got in trouble because I didn't order enough rolls for, this Easter weekend. And because my thought is, family's not going to be getting together and,
right, with
the kids to go kill grandma. I mean, I don't know. It's just madness.
It is. It is pure madness, and it's because we have a madman as a leader telling people, if you're ready to go, this is it, and just get some cute shoes, because when they rapture you up, that's all it's going to be left is some real cute shoes. I don't understand the selfishness that people respond with when they watch this selfish man all day long. I don't know how listen, Tennessee's gorgeous. I used to drive a truck. I used to be terrified of Rocky Top. I mean, just terrified because, they got the runaway lanes and everything. And, like if you could do.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Right? And they got that traffic light at the top where only one truck is allowed at a time and all that. And I have so much respect for it because it is gorgeous, but it's dangerous there. And for people to not take this seriously in those hills and hollers, oh, my God, who is going to tend to them?
Well, I have a lot of friends that they just think the world of Trump, and you can't really argue with them. You can't bring them to reason. You just kind of well, maybe one day, but
breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart.
Yeah,
there's some good people there, and it just breaks my heart. Really does. It makes me sad because there's no way.
We actually. There was actually a hospital group in Cookville today that laid off like 400 employees. It's a hospital. And they said because they had low volume. I said, well, it's going to get, it's going to get worse. I don't know if they'll
just call them back is what they'll do, right? They're just doing it to save money because they get it. They know what's going on.
Yeah.
Anyway, I got some breaking news. You be safe there. But the acting Navy Secretary, Mr. Modley, he just resigned. He resigned. Oh! He's the one that called Captain Crozier stupid because Captain Crozier wrote a letter that got leaked to the San Francisco Chronicle that said, my guys are sick. Turns out about 180 of them tested positive for COVID, and Captain Crozier tested positive for COVID. And last night at that crazy crap fest, Trump was asked about the Navy Secretary, the acting. We don't have anybody for real now. We just have actors, we have thespians pretending to be, right? And so Modley, was caught on tape saying Captain Crozier was either naive or stupid to think that this cry for help wouldn't be picked up by the press, and how stupid and naive. And then when he was asked about it today after the crap fest of a news conference where Trump was, he didn't know what to do. He didn't know, am I on the side of Captain Crozier, or am I on the side of my acting Navy? I don't know. He said, I may have to get involved. Because the tape came out, right? And so they asked Modley to apologize. And Modley's apology was not really an apology. It was, sort of like, well, I don't know if he was stupid or if he did it on purpose. So I didn't mean to call him naive and stupid. What I really meant to do is say he did it on purpose. And he just resigned after there was pressure put upon him, because I guess Donald Trump decided he likes the lower ranking guys, right? I don't know what the deal is, but he just resigned. He was just acting, but he also, Donald Trump, just fired another inspector general. Yeah, he just fired the inspector general that was supposed to see to the honest distribution of the $2 trillion bailout bill. The guy that was going to preside over the $2 trillion going to the right people, making sure there was no fraud, making sure there was no money laundering going on with, people applying for loans that they shouldn't apply for, or getting loans that they don't deserve. Yeah, he just fired the inspector general. And I just need to remind you that when Donald Trump signed the bill that the House fought really hard for, the Democrats fought really hard for, to get the Paycheck Protection Program out to small businesses, etc., and the $1,200 checks, and the unemployment on steroids, right? The $600 payments per week on top of the measly little $200 your state or $275 your state allows. Donald Trump did a signing statement saying that he would not abide by any inspector general's reportage about fraud. He wanted to ignore any inspector general's report. Now, this is why yesterday when they asked him about the inspector general at HHS, he heard inspector general and he got all right. And then today he just fired the inspector general that's supposed to oversee the distribution of the $2 trillion. This is the definition of corruption. This right here.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Democratic Governor Tony Evers wanted to delay this election, did not want it to happen today. So he tried to go through his Republican-led legislature, but they struck him down. So yesterday he issued an executive order delaying this election to June 9th. That was immediately appealed by the Republican-led legislature to the Republican-led state Supreme Court, who voted to keep the election happening today. So after that pair of losses, Governor Tony Evers issued a statement last night reading, tomorrow, today, in Wisconsin, thousands will wake up and have to choose between exercising their right to vote and staying healthy and safe. In this time of historic crisis, it's a shame that two branches of government in this state chose to pass the buck instead of taking responsibility for the health and safety of the people we were elected to serve. And while Wisconsin isn't necessarily a coronavirus hotspot compared to some of the other states we have seen how quickly these situations can change, and only time will tell as to whether in-person voting today will play a factor in any rising numbers, Allison.
Wow. So this is like, they asked the governor of Louisiana if he would have canceled Mardi Gras had he known that there was a pandemic, right? And he said, oh, well, you can't turn the clock back. You don't get a do-over. But here in Wisconsin, they know there's a pandemic, and they know that it's super contagious, and they know that closing in cities hundreds of polling places and downsizing to only 5 polling places is going to funnel more and more people into these 5 places. They know what the risks are. They know everything about this now. It's not like, we didn't know, so we had Mardi Gras. We let 1 million people into the streets. No, it isn't like that. This is ridiculous. This is soulless. This is clueless. This is cruelty. This is bizarre. And people are literally risking their lives in Wisconsin to try and vote because it's a general election. They're trying to vote out this Judge Kelly, this Justice Kelly dude. They're trying to show up and vote out this Republican legislature. They're trying so hard to get up and do this and risking their lives. Used to say, vote or die. Now it's vote and die. What progress we've made here in the United States of America. So sad and so completely predictable and avoidable. And, they chose, the Republicans chose. And they didn't choose you. They chose themselves. Steve in Arizona.
Hey, Randi, I just wanted to say your hair looks still really good. And, you're
okay, so I blew out my hair myself, and it was like this big. And then Jessica came and flat ironed it for me. So without her, without my child, I would have had. So kudos to her, compliments to her.
Well, you guys are doing good as a team there.
Yeah.
Hey, what I got to say here is kind of pretty chilling and pretty dark, but it bears some consideration, I think. Where I'm going with this is I think this whole thing is working out just as planned. Because how could any worse job be done? It would be impossible.
Right.
Where I'm going with this is Vladimir Putin. He hates the United States. He blames us for destroying the USSR. It's been really diminished. He's mad at Obama for putting sanctions on it. Trump was pretty much broke. It seems like he had several bankruptcies. It sounds to me like the oligarchs, they loaned him a bunch of money, to get him out of hock, and they helped get him into power here. Who knows what was said in Helsinki? We don't know any of this stuff. What of all these decisions that Trump has done? Who does it benefit? It benefits the USSR. Look at Turkey and the pullout there and how it destroyed the Kurds. So what I'm wondering here is, if he can have this pandemic destroy us, and Putin doesn't even have to fire a shot or send a troop over here. If he can have us so diminished and so destroyed, maybe his loans are going to get forgiven or something.
Well, he's already asked Deutsche Bank to forgive his loans because, Donald Trump saw an opportunity. People were, reacting to this pandemic, and small businesses were starting to apply for these small business loans and, for rent forgiveness, things like that, to give them space not to be evicted during this pandemic, blah, blah. So Trump went right to Deutsche Bank and asked them to forgive his loans. I don't know what the outcome of that is going to be. But, of course, that old expression is new again, and that is that the United States will never be destroyed from without. It can only ever be destroyed from within. And, the idea that Putin liked Donald Trump and was proactively, advocating for Donald Trump with the troll farms and all the other things. I mean, that's in the Mueller report. The Mueller report said that Vladimir Putin had a preferred candidate and that Donald Trump accepted the help that Vladimir Putin offered him, and that's as far as we got. But we know that.
Yeah, and he wants to see him win again, and by sending these people in Wisconsin.
But I don't think he can win again. And so, yes, Wisconsin is a bellwether. Wisconsin, everybody better pay attention to what the courts, the Republican conservative courts, ruled in these two election cases, because the Supreme Court election case was specific about the date of mail-in ballots, but the Wisconsin state Supreme Court was about whether or not you could cancel an election unilaterally. Not even that. It was about whether or not you could change the date of an election so close to an election, right? And they said no. They said absolutely not. So that just means that if Trump waits until, I don't know, the week before the election and cancels it, you know what I'm saying? And this mail-in ballot, he's totally against it, and we might need it. And there are, there's 22 states that allow for mail-in ballots. Some states, their entire election is mailed in. There's no fraud. There's no cheating. Hawaii does it. Washington State does it. There's 22 states that allow for mail-in balloting. He just knows that if everybody had a chance to vote, there would never be, he would never be president again. He just knows that.
And then also with the Bush poison pill they put in 2005 to destroy the post office by pre-funding their retirement plan. Now in June it sounds like it might be have to go under or something. Well, there's his perfect out. Oh, the Postal Service is destroyed,
Yeah, that's true.
We can't have an election. Well, thanks, Randy. I don't want to take all your time, but thank you.
Yeah, and you think about how much thought had to go into all of this and what evil thoughts they had to be. And then, if you can't imagine that somebody is this thorough or thoroughly evil, let's say, I just want you to read, sci-fi, because they weren't thoroughly evil, but they imagined thoroughly evil plots. And so it's doable, is what I'm saying. If you put your mind to coming up with an evil plot and tying all the pieces together to make it work, look no further than some of your favorite authors, okay, who write dystopian novels, who write novels about viruses, who write novels about contagions and pandemics. Yes, it can be done. It can be done. People do it all the time, but they do it because it's fun fiction. Now, it's actually the reality of our lives. And that is why it's okay to say that this president is insane, because he has taken fictional narratives, learned from them, and put them into practice at the very peril of the people he's sworn to protect and defend. I'm telling you, it's Shakespearean in its breadth and depth. So now I'm looking at the numbers. Yesterday we had 10,000 people perish from this pandemic. Today it's up to 12,000. 12,000 Americans are lost. We have almost 400,000 cases in the United States alone. 386,000 at the last count. Now, yesterday we had 10,000 when we signed off. We had 10,000 who had perished and 347,003. So we're adding like 40,000 cases every single day. And this is without testing. So can you imagine what the real number is? Because I can't. I can't. I deal in facts. I deal in reality. I don't deal in fan fiction, okay? It's not my... When I'm on vacation, seriously, it's what I call, and I shouldn't say because some of these books are amazing, but I call it luxury reading or fanfic, or, you know, I'll say it to Brett, I don't watch trash TV, even though some TV is so good. And I get that everybody's watching Ozark. Believe me, I know. But I don't imbibe, okay? Because I'm working in the middle of a pandemic for all of our benefit, you know, and so I don't have time for... But the idea that these fictional sci-fi or, you know, that they're real now. My God.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
I wish I could give you better news, but I think you know the truth. And that is that we are now some 300 delegates behind Vice President Biden, and the path toward victory is virtually impossible. So while we are winning the ideological battle, and while we are winning the support of so many young people and working people throughout the country, I have concluded that this battle for the Democratic nomination will not be successful. And so today, I am announcing the suspension of my campaign. Please know that I do not make this decision lightly. In fact, it has been a very difficult and painful decision. Over the past few weeks, Jane and I, in consultation with top staff and many of our prominent supporters, have made an honest assessment of the prospects for victory. If I believed we had a feasible path to the nomination, I would certainly continue the campaign. But it's just not there. I know that there may be some in our movement who disagree with this decision, who would like us to fight on to the last ballot cast at the Democratic Convention. I understand that position. But as I see the crisis gripping the nation, exacerbated by a president unwilling or unable to provide any kind of credible leadership, and the work that needs to be done to protect people in this most desperate hour, I cannot in good conscience continue to mount a campaign that cannot win and which would interfere with the important work required of all of us in this difficult hour.
So there you have it. Bernie is out, and our not Trump election continues. And this embarrassment of riches that we had with 4,962,642 candidates is now down to Joe Biden and us. That's where we are. That's what we have to do. And you are on a holy mission, everybody. A holy mission. And that mission is not to allow Donald Trump to become a two-term president. It is a mission, and everybody needs to be on it. And I know that there are a lot of people out there that, oh, well, if I can't vote for Bernie, I will. Listen, voting against Donald Trump is an actual vote. It is an actual thing. And that is what you have to wrap your brain around, that there is an actual thing that you can go and vote against Donald Trump, okay? Now, Donald Trump, Twitler's already out there trying to woo Bernie voters. He's blaming everybody, as he does all the time for everything. I mean, he's blaming the World Health Organization for this pandemic because it represents everything he hates. The World Health an organization. So why would you think that he's not going to start, beating up Democratic candidates who dared offer their experience or dare offer their ideas in a Democratic primary? Oh no, attack all of them. It's all their fault. It's their fault. Poor, poor, poor Bernie bros. Come join the Republican Party. He actually tweeted out, the Bernie people should come to the Republican Party. Trade. In all caps, trade. What exactly would progressive liberals get from the Republicans in that transaction? What would you actually get? He's already purged the GOP of anybody who disagrees with him. So I'm a little concerned, but I'm also ready to move on into the conversation about how the hell do we have an election in November? I tell you, for a couple days now, we've been talking to you about this debacle, this unbelievable display of fecklessness and horror that was an election in Wisconsin yesterday. The GOP does not want you to vote. They don't like voting. Voting is not their best friend. There are more of us than there are of them, and they know it, and that is why they go to extraordinary lengths to keep you from voting. That's why they gerrymander. That's why they do voter suppression efforts. That's why they tell you the election is Wednesday when it's always on a Tuesday. That is why they don't want mail-in ballots. That is what they hate. Donald Trump said it out loud. If you allow mail-in voting, you will never have a Republican president ever again.
It's just the common facts. I mean, they have a majority in the House, and therefore you need their vote, and they want to get certain things. I will tell you this. If you look at before and after, the things they had in there were crazy. They had things, levels of voting that if you ever agreed to it, you'd never have a Republican elected in this country again. They had things in there about, election days and what you do and all sorts of clawbacks. And they had things that were just totally crazy.
I am the chosen one.
That is his position. Mail-in is bad. He said it again last night. He had another unhinged, ridiculous, hijacked press conference so that we cannot hear from scientists. We cannot hear from, epidemiologists or logistics people. We can't, all we got to do is sit and listen to him. And, he is such a complete and utter hypocrite. He said over and over again in all of these stupid, whatever they are, they're rallies. They're freaking rallies. He had the My Pillow guy, okay? That is a rally. That is not a coronavirus task force briefing. And fewer people are willing to stand next to him at this point. And it ain't because they don't get tested. Everybody's getting tested at the White House, And they got all those 15-minute tests. That's where they went. They went to VIPs, they went to Donald Trump, they went to the EOS, they went to the executive office building, they went to Pence's staff, they went to Trump's staff. That's where those 15-minute things went. And everybody's been tested. And they said to him, why are you so against mail-in voting? What is the problem? And he said, the only thing, they cheat. And then they said, but you voted by mail. You did.
We're going to put a hold on money spent.
Oh, that's the World Health Organization attack. I mean, it's a...
So you were highly critical of mail-in voting, mail-in ballots for voting.
I think mail-in voting is horrible.
You voted by mail in Florida's election last month, didn't you?
Sure, I could vote by mail for that.
How do you reconcile
because I'm
that?
allowed to. Well, that's called out of state. You know why I voted? Because I happen to be in the White House and I won't be able to go to Florida and vote.
But let me just say,
well, there's a big difference between somebody that's out of state and does a ballot and everything sealed, certified, and everything else. You see what you have to do with the certifications, and you get thousands and thousands of people sitting in somebody's living room signing ballots all over the place. No, I think that mail-in voting is a terrible thing. I think if you vote, you should go. And even the concept of early voting is not the greatest because a lot of things happen. But it's okay. But you should go and you should vote. I think you should go and you should vote. You look at what they do where they grab thousands of mail-in ballots and they dump it. I'll tell you what, and I don't have to tell you, you can look at the statistics. There's a lot of dishonesty going along with mail-in voting, mail-in ballots.
Okay, there is no fraud in mail-in ballots. There's zero. There just isn't any. The Brennan Center for Justice put out numerous papers on, in-person fraud, which doesn't exist, and mail-in ballot fraud. You can track ballots in transit, just like a FedEx package. You can put a barcode on them that allows election officials to cancel if it's lost, or to cancel if it's stolen, or to replace it for you. The ballot envelope itself can be designed to prevent frauds. You have to sign your envelope, for God's sake. There is no ballot fraud. Colorado is a state. Washington is a state. They vote by mail. California does the lion's share of voting by mail too. And Michael Bennet, Senator Michael Bennet from Colorado, he said, Mr. President, we've had vote by mail in Colorado for years. We don't have fraud. What we do have is the second highest turnout in America. That is what he's against. And if you want to know what the definition of sick in this climate is, have a look-see at Milwaukee yesterday and the crap that went on there. That is the definition of sick. I mean, unreal.
Randy at RandyRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
The voting in Wisconsin and those long lines, who will be responsible and who should be held responsible if people get sick after they voted?
Look, all I did was endorse a candidate. I don't know anything about their lines. I don't know anything about their voting. I love the state.
But you also encourage people to get out and vote today as well. Will you take some of the responsibility of some of those people
I won the
get
state,
sick?
which is rare for a Republican to do, but I won the state of Wisconsin. I'm going to win it again because we've been great to the people of Wisconsin, as you know, with our policies, and they like me and I like them. But all I did was endorse a candidate that's highly qualified, very respected person, and all hell broke loose as soon as I did that. And then all of a sudden they want to change. Before I endorsed them, they didn't want to change this voting area. There was no problem with the Democrats voting until I endorsed the candidate. Then they said, let's move it 2 months. Let's move it 3 months later. Safety, 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 right? All of a sudden they want safety. Well, before I did the endorsement, they didn't talk about safety. It was fine for months. For months, it was fine. It was always going to be. And now I endorse, and they want safety.
There's something so incredibly wrong with him. That is your president insisting that the Wisconsin election was about him. It was about him because he endorsed Dan Kelly, Justice Dan Kelly, who's a conservative Supreme Court justice, who's on the ballot because that's how Wisconsin chooses its Supreme Court justices, is, by voting. He said it had nothing to do. He didn't mention pandemic. He didn't mention that Milwaukee had 1,000 cases. He didn't mention it. It's about him. Every freaking thing is about him. Now, did you see what went on there yesterday? Did you have a look? See, Milwaukee, they had in-person voting, and of course, I've been telling you that they had 7,000 poll workers who could not work. They just could not do it. They were protecting their families. Most of them were, I won't say elderly, but senior citizens are the ones that take up the lion's share of these volunteer positions at the polling places, and they were warned to stay away from groups and not to, right? And so they took 180 polling places, reduced it to 5 polling places for the entire city of Milwaukee, and the lines were unbelievable. And yesterday, a student who, an intern for a news organization, she was out there taking pictures, and she captured an era-defining picture of people standing there with masks on their faces and gloves on their hands, holding signs saying, "This is ridiculous," to show how ridiculous the GOP actually is, because the GOP refused to move the election. Governor Evers couldn't do it by himself. He turned to his legislature, which is a majority Republican legislature. They literally refused to show up and do their jobs. They challenged it in court. The Supreme Court that you're voting for, this guy he endorsed, who is the Chief Justice, they said, oh, no, let's go ahead with it. Let's go ahead with it. The Supreme Court said, right along party lines, 4-2 in, Wisconsin. And I tell you, the Assembly Speaker, did anybody see this? Did everybody see this? This man posted this on Facebook. He is the Speaker of the Wisconsin Assembly. His name's Robin Voss. The man looked like an extra from Outbreak. He looked like he was the star of the movie Contagion, and he was giving an interview on his Facebook page telling everybody how safe it was to vote.
You can come to a polling place and do it safely. You have the ability to do curbside voting, just like they're doing here.
Look at this.
That you have a Democrat in Wisconsin as governor. Ask him. That's his problem.
What?
Okay, he should be doing it. Again, some governors fail, and I won't let them fail, because when they fail, I'll help. But that's run by Democrats right now. Okay? It's run by Democrats. You had a great Republican.
Is it possible to socially distance when you're voting? You're going to have crowds.
You have to speak to the governor. What you should do is call the governor of Wisconsin and ask him that question. But also ask him, how come it was okay to do this until I endorsed the candidate?
Oh, my God.
And as soon as I endorsed him, these lines are formed, and I hear, Mike, the lines are through the roof. So, hopefully they're going to vote for the right candidate.
Holy crap, man. It was the governor who tried to postpone this election, but he doesn't have the authority to do it alone. And it was the GOP that moved the election to be live, open, and in person in the midst of a pandemic with 1,000 cases present in Milwaukee at the time. It was the Republican Assembly leader who dressed up in surgical gear and told you it's just as safe as if you went to the grocery store to come and vote today. Now, if you went to the grocery store dressed like him, you'd start a panic, right? And then Donald Trump stands up at the podium and says, oh, well, you're going to have to ask the Democratic governor why they're having an election today. See, I endorsed this guy, and that's why there are lines. People want to, obey me. That's why there are lines. Wow.
Clear. Fatality. Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Look, the Supreme Court, of course they were right, because what the Democrats wanted, and you know what this happened, I supported a man named Justice Kelly, who's Daniel Kelly, highly respected justice. And I supported him just the other day, social media. I know of him. He's just a fantastic justice.
You know nothing.
And I endorsed him. And as soon as I endorsed him, they wanted to move the election. They didn't want to move the election. As soon as I endorsed him, the Wisconsin Democrats say, oh, let's move the election to 2 months later. They didn't mind having the election until I endorsed him, which is very interesting. And now they talk about, oh, safety, safety. Well, it was 15 minutes after I put out an endorsement that they said we have to move the election. They didn't want to move the election before that. The other thing they wanted to do, which is crazy, at the end of the election, they wanted to have 1 week for proxies to come in, or mail ballots. Now, mail ballots, they cheat, okay? People cheat.
God.
Mail ballots are a very dangerous thing for this country because they're cheaters.
Wow. They're cheaters. Colorado, you're cheaters. California, you're cheaters. Washington State, you're cheaters. Everybody that votes by mail, cheaters. All of you are cheaters. Cheaters. There is no cheating going on in the mail. This is just so unbelievable to me that the ultimate voter suppression turns out to be a pandemic. Isn't that something? And that in Milwaukee, there was no curbside voting. In the suburbs, there were. Yeah, in the suburbs, there was. And still you had the Speaker of the Assembly in Wisconsin, which is the Speaker of the House of Wisconsin, dressed up like, some character in a freaking, Walking Dead. I mean, he literally looked like he was about to make meth in a trailer. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't even believe the guy was standing out there saying how safe it was, dressed up like The Walking Dead. I don't understand how people could stand online yesterday with a mask on their face, gloves on their hand, and vote for a Republican at the same time. How do you have that thought in your head? I mean, if that was you, get help. Seriously, turn yourself. You need help. It was unbelievable. And he keeps on trashing this vote by mail thing. And when that doesn't work, then he trashes the post office because, states are going to move. And also, there's going to be another relief bill. There's going to be another package. And in that package, you could just best believe there are going to be vote by mail rules. Congress will pass something like that. I don't know what Mitch McConnell's going to do in the Senate, but Nancy is going to craft a bill that has in it the ability for people to vote by mail for any reason. And the states are going to do it too. New York State just did it. New York is not one of those vote by mail people, but today Cuomo said everyone can vote by mail. Everyone.
On voting, I've seen lines of people on television voting in other states. This is totally nonsensical. God bless them for having such diligence for their civic duty that they would go stand on a line to vote. But people shouldn't have to make that choice. And where, by executive order, all New Yorkers can vote absentee on June 23rd, primaries coming up.
Thank you. Everybody gets to vote by mail in New York. This man is so, look, he had a 50-50 chance as it is before this pandemic, a 50-50 chance, okay? And now he understands that 55% of this country thinks he's doing the world's worst job, okay? That's a new poll today. And every week, the number of people who think that he should be doing more, could be doing more, he's not doing anything, that's helping them. People think that they're going to get it. People think that they know somebody who already has it. Every week, it's falling and falling, his approval ratings. And he knows it. And by November, maybe we'll get a second round. I don't know. Maybe, look, there are states that haven't, even begun. There are states that are sort of kind of flattening the curve now. They're not finished. But New York is now seeing more deaths, believe it or not, more deaths, but less hospital admissions. So they think that the social distancing is working. If people stop the social distancing, we're going to get a second round. We're going to get a second round. That's what Cuomo was trying to say today. The good news is that the curve is flattening. The bad news is that if we stop doing what we're doing, you'll see it just, explode again.
There's good news in what we're seeing, that what we have done and what we are doing is actually working and it's making a difference. We took dramatic actions in this state. New York Pause program to close down schools, businesses, social distancing, and it's working. It is flattening the curve, and we see that again today. So far, meaning what? Meaning that curve is flattening because we are flattening the curve by what we are doing. If we stop what we are doing, you will see that curve change. That curve is purely a function of what we do day in and day out. But right now it's flattening. The number of patients hospitalized is down. And again, we don't look at just day-to-day data. You look at the 3-day trend, but that number is down. The 3-day average trend is also down. Anecdotally, the individual hospitals, the larger systems are reporting that some of them are actually releasing more people than are coming in, so they're net down. So we see the quote-unquote flattening of the curve.
So that's great. It's what you want to see. However, keep this in mind. 0.6% of this country has been able to have a coronavirus test. Seriously, the president has been just lying about the effective, push out of these tests. Only 0.6% of everyone in this country has been tested. So the numbers of people who are either silent carriers or asymptomatic carriers, whatever you want to call it, or the number of cases that are actually in this country is unknown. And you would think that you would want a president to lead the country to keep the cases identified and separate from non-COVID people. He has no interest in doing this. It's almost as if he knows that the people that are being most affected by this disease are African Americans and immigrant communities. It's almost as if he knows that, and he's okay with it. A few days ago, we had in the homework section an article from Mother Jones magazine, who was the first one to point this out, that African Americans were succumbing to this disease in greater numbers. Some places 6 times higher in African Americans death, and some places 3 times higher death rates among African Americans and immigrant communities. Do you know why? I'll explain it to you. There are many reasons. They're all institutionally baked into our cake.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
I laid out the 5 things I thought he should be doing now, and suggested how I thought he should go about doing it. He should fully implement the Defense Production Act. He should appoint at the same time a supply commander who controlled it all. He should create a Bank Defense Production Act because the big banks don't want to lend to small businesses. He should exponentially ramp up drug testing, and he should open up a new enrollment period for Obamacare. And I thought he should collect a lot more data and make it mandatory collection of data nationally on those African Americans who are contracting the disease and dying at a much higher rate than other folks.
Now that's true. That is just a fact. Now you have African Americans dying at 3 times the rate of counties that are whiter. You have counties where the rates of death of white residents is 6 times higher. Now, why is that? Milwaukee, where they had this off-the-hook freaking, a charade of an election, which, by the way, you won't get the results for Wisconsin's pandemic election until next Tuesday, I think. Monday or Tuesday, the 13th, whatever day that is. That's when we'll get the results. And trust me, that's going to be contested. No matter what it is, somebody's going to contest the results of that election because too many people had asked for absentee ballots, didn't get them, didn't receive them, and then could not vote in person. So that's just a cluster F waiting to happen next week, okay? But Milwaukee is the largest city in Wisconsin. I used to live there. I worked there. You know that. I don't have to go through it. But African Americans account for 70% of the dead in Milwaukee, but just 26% of the population. The disparity is very much the same in Louisiana. 70% of the people who died were black, although African Americans make up just 32% of the entire state of Louisiana's population. Michigan is the same. New Jersey is the same. New York is the same. African Americans account for 33% of the cases, 40% of the deaths, except they comprise 14% of the population. Detroit, where African Americans make up 79% of the population, are dying 4 times faster than white Americans. And in Illinois, there is a disparity that is almost identical to Michigan. But when you just look at Chicago, black residents have died 6 times the rate of white residents. 118 reported deaths, 70% were black. Now, they're going to tell you that it's because, I don't know, somehow blacks have greater instances of diabetes and heart disease and lung disease. Well, that's well documented. But do you know why that is? That is because they don't have access to health care. Why is it 3 or 4 times more for black communities as opposed to white communities? It's called growing up without health care. It's called growing up poor, and it's also called doing public jobs like trash collectors, police officers. Our Surgeon General, Jerome Adams, is 45 years old. You've seen him. He is 45 years old, and he said, I shared myself personally that I have high blood pressure, that I have heart disease, 45 years old, and spent a week in the intensive care unit due to a heart condition, that I actually have asthma, and I'm pre-diabetic. And that's because I represent that legacy of growing up poor and black in America. Meaning without access to good health care, meaning with higher unemployment rates, meaning no health insurance, meaning taking public, jobs like trash collector, meaning, being out in the population, meaning coming in contact with sick people. There's an expression that when America catches a cold, black America catches pneumonia. And that used to be, an aha thing. But now it's real. That is what the cause of death is. It's double pneumonia. This particular disease attacks your lungs. And if you already have a weak heart, or you already have weak kidneys, or you already have a weak organ, and it's being deprived of oxygen, you're going to die at a higher rate than people who don't. And that is an institutional failing of the United States of America, and it's classic racism, and everybody understands that, including this president, who may not want people of color or immigrant communities to have access to ballots. That is how evil and ugly this might get. You have entire communities that don't have the same access to housing, that don't have the same access to medical care, that don't have the same access to employment, which means they don't have the same access to health insurance. It is not poor people in general can't Skype into work. They don't have jobs that allow them to call it in, phone it in, okay? A lot of people live in very polluted places. And that is why there's such a high incidence of asthma in poorer communities. Chicago, for instance, health experts said that black people are more likely to have respiratory problems. Environmental pollution, limited access to doctors causes a higher incidence of respiratory problems. Diabetes and high blood pressure, that's limited access to decent diets, to clean food. And poor people, white and black, all know that's true. When I was poor, My diet consisted of red stripe bologna, ketchup in hot water, and saltines. And then I loved the little cans of sausages, you know, the little Vienna sausages. And you'd smash them on a saltine and eat them for dinner. There's also this institutional racism that exists in doctors' offices. One study that was highlighted by NPR actually showed, and we know this is true with women, because we know that there's a higher incidence of black mortality in women giving birth than there is for white women. But doctors have also been less likely to refer black individuals for testing when they come in with symptoms like fever, coughing, and trouble breathing. And in some low-income neighborhoods, it takes longer to get a test than for a white person. And for me, I don't have access to a test, so can you imagine that you're poor, you're living in a place where there's you have no health insurance because there's no access to a job that provides insurance. And so you have to go to a clinic or you have to go, to a doctor, and the doctor doesn't refer you to a test because there's limited access to tests. I got news for you. Any attempt to limit this virus depends on everybody getting a test. Everybody. And we're just now starting to understand what it looks like out there for the poorest people, for the people who have the most public jobs, for people who live in overly polluted or overly dense areas. You look at Queens and the Bronx in New York, which has the highest rates of hospitalizations. That's where I grew up. I grew up in Queens, okay? It's also AOC's district, which is interesting, just as an aside. But those are heavily immigrant communities. Those are communities with a lot of African Americans and a lot of new Americans, let's say, immigrants. And that is where this disease is spreading. And it's killing disproportionately.
Clear. Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
This coronavirus is for real. And we out here as public workers doing our job, trying to make an honest living to take care of our families. But for you to get on the bus and stand on the bus and cough several times without covering up your mouth, and you know that we in the middle of a pandemic, that lets me know that some folks don't care. But yo, I gotta get out of here, man. I gotta get out of here. I gotta make this run. What's up, everybody? I'll holler at y'all, man. Y'all be safe.
That's John Hargrove. He was a bus driver in Detroit, and I said he was a bus driver in Detroit because he died 4 days after he made that video. He did. He died. He got coronavirus, and he died. These are the kinds of jobs that African American, patriots take to make an honest living every single day of their lives. They do public work. They're food servers. They work in kitchens. They are public transit personnel. They are healthcare workers. They are the people who take care of our seniors, as you know. And they don't have access to healthcare for themselves. They don't have access to testing for themselves. They don't have access to N95 masks or any kind of meaningful protection. But the Speaker of the Assembly of Wisconsin yesterday was telling everybody how safe it is to vote while he was in a hazmat suit I mean, it was an instant classic yesterday to have this guy.
You can come to a polling place and do it safely. You have the ability to do curbside voting, just like they're doing here, even if it's in a different municipality without drive-up voting. You can request that the person come out. They'll deliver you a ballot. They'll check your ID.
This guy is a trip, okay? Charlie Sykes, who covers, politics, said
that video is an instant classic where he's standing there in all the protective gear saying there's nothing to worry about. It's perfectly safe. This is George Orwell meets Animal House meets The Onion. And I'm not sure that it conveyed the message that he had here. Look, what we're seeing here is the partisan divide. If anybody thought that there was going to be this moment, this kumbaya moment, where Republicans and Democrats would say this is a serious problem. We absolutely have to protect our democracy. We must protect the integrity of the vote in the midst of a pandemic. If you thought there was going to be a coming together, I think Wisconsin is a rude awakening because the Republicans have drawn a line in the sand. And I think you're going to see that on a national basis. You hear it from Donald Trump that they are not open to the possibility of making it easier to vote other than in person and the mail-in voting. I mean, look, in Wisconsin, think about what happened here. We have a city, our biggest city, Milwaukee, has 300,000 registered voters. It normally has 180 polling places. Today it had just 5. Right. Green Bay, Wisconsin had only 2 polling places. More than 100 municipalities couldn't find enough poll workers to even open the ballots. And yet you saw these scenes of Wisconsinites, of Americans who were forced to choose between doing their civic duty, participating in their democracy, or protecting their health. It really is a dystopic moment. And I hope people understand what the implications would be if, in fact, this took place during a presidential election.
Seriously, dude, this is unbelievable. And the idea that, African Americans and immigrant communities are suffering the most tells you a lot about why Donald Trump doesn't want mail-in voting, why he doesn't want certain people to have access to the ballot box. Yesterday was a wake-up call, okay? It was a wake-up call for state legislatures, for Congress to put into place the ability for Americans to vote by mail in this upcoming election. Because what you have here is a complete and utter destruction of entire communities of people who serve the public every single day in various capacities, whether they're in kitchens, whether they're doing, working in laundromats, whether they're police officers, whether they're EMTs, whether they're bus drivers, train drivers. These people are exposed every single day, and they are dying faster than other Americans. And Donald Trump seems to be down with it. He thinks that there's pictures of you on your credit card. That's what he thinks. I don't know. Last time this man went shopping, I have no idea. But he thinks that our photos are on things besides for driver's licenses. Now you have to understand, a lot of people don't have driver's licenses, especially people who take public transportation. And the people who take public transportation are usually driven by the people most affected by this pandemic. And the people who take public transportation are also disproportionately affected by this pandemic. And this seems to be okay with him. But remember, there are at least 12% of America does not have photo ID.
But do you think every state in this country should be prepared for mail-in voting?
No, because I think a lot of people cheat with mail-in voting. I think people should vote with ID, voter ID. I think voter ID is very important. And the reason they don't want voter ID is because they intend to cheat. When you get something, when you buy something, you look at your cards and credit cards and different cards. You have your picture on many of them. Not
I don't
all of them,
have
but
my
on many
picture
of
on
them.
any of them.
You should have a picture on your for voting. It should be called voter ID. They should have that. And it shouldn't be mail-in. Excuse me. It shouldn't be mail-in voting. It should be you go to a booth and you proudly display yourself. You don't send it in the mail where people pick up all sorts of bad things can happen by the time they sign that, if they sign that, by the time it gets in and is tabulated. No, it shouldn't be mailed in. You should vote at the booth and you should have voter ID. because when you have voter ID, that's the real deal. Thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow.
Holy crap, man. Okay, 25% of all ballots that were cast in 2016 were cast by mail. 30% of all ballots were cast by mail in 2018. And you got to see that the increase in vote by mail caused him to lose the House. See, they got wiped out. There was a big blue wave. But for 5 states, vote by mail is already the primary way that they conduct their elections. And in 16 states, you can request a no-excuse ballot. California, Colorado, Oregon, Washington, they have made vote by mail the core of how you vote. There is no fraud in vote by mail. The ballot envelope has to be signed in order to prevent fraud. You could also put a barcode on it in order to... I mean, how in the hell does FedEx know where every package is every minute of every second of every day so that you can check tracking? Okay, people buy a hat from me, right? A hat from me. Guess what? You get tracking information. You know exactly where it is. You know when it left my little loving fingers and it went into a package and it was sent to you. And you know when it's going to arrive, okay? And if it's lost, you know that too. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, said 73% of voters in Colorado, 59% in Oregon, 65% in Washington returned their ballots to some physical location, such as a drop box or a local election office. Even among those who returned their ballots by mail in these states, 47% dropped off their ballot at a U.S. post office or a neighborhood mailbox rather than having their own postal worker pick it up at home. And those drop boxes are equipped with cameras that make them even more secure. This man just stands here and lies. Now, he is fully frontally attacking the post office, insisting that the post office has to go. That they're being ripped off by Amazon. They're making money on Amazon. And that is why Amazon is doing their own build-out so that they can deliver their own stuff without having to pay the post office. See what I mean? He's just a liar.
Clear. All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Thank you. And my second question from a colleague is Congressman Jerry Connolly, a Democrat from Northern Virginia, told the local D.C. CBS station that you personally requested the CARES Act stimulus bill be stripped of $25 billion for the Postal Service. Connolly claims that unless the USPS gets that $25 billion, the agency will be run out of money by June. He accuses you of hastening the demise of the Postal Service. Could you respond to that, please?
I'm the reason the Postal Service has lost billions of dollars every year for many, many years. I'm the demise. This is the new one. I'm now the demise of the Postal Service. I'll tell you who's the demise of the Postal Service. So these internet companies that give their stuff to the Postal Service, packages, and I don't know why they're not, I don't run the Postal Service. You have a group of people, so-called independent people, and they run it. But these packages are, they lose money every time they deliver a package for Amazon or these other internet companies, these other companies that deliver. They drop everything in the post office. They say, you deliver it. And if they'd raise the prices by actually a lot, then you'd find out that the post office could make money or break even. But
Okay, so he's after the post office. In the CARES Act, in the money, the $8.3 billion that went to businesses, 25 of it was stripped out. It was supposed to go to the post office. Donald Trump is trying to kill the post office, and we've been, alluding to it for a while now, that there are stories out there, and they are getting more and more voluminous. People looking at the demise of the Postal Service by June. Now, let me just explain to you that there are two kinds of mail. There's something called monopoly mail. I've looked into it, which is, competitive mail products. And then that's what we all get, as regular service from the post office. That's about 70% of everything that the post office makes, because post office is only allowed to sell postage, right? They're only allowed to sell it. And it's 97% of all the volume that the United States Postal Service has. That is declining. And then there's competitive products. Competitive products is where Amazon falls, okay? That's about 30% of the revenue that the post office sees and only 3% of its volume, believe it or not. And the Postal Service has to charge competitive prices for these competitive products, and they have to pay 5.5% of institutional fixed costs, whatever it costs the Postal Service to deliver these packages. And the reason why the Postal Service likes delivering these packages is because they're already at your mailbox every day. And so a large part of what is required to deliver a package to you is already needed for the usual postal service that you get, or what they call the monopoly mail. Amazon represents about 25% of the Postal Service's revenue. It is a good deal for the post office because of the 5.5% requirement. And that is why Amazon, and you're starting to see these Amazon trucks, these Prime trucks in your neighborhood. I remember like one day I saw like one, and then the next day I saw like 5, and then the next day I saw a whole line of them. That's why Amazon is building out its own delivery system. It doesn't want to pay the Post Service. That man has everything exactly backwards, as usual. And that is what's costing the Postal Service 25% of its revenue, is that Amazon is building out its own delivery service, aside and apart from the Postal Service. This man is so full of... And so you say, well, why would he lie about the post office? Why would he do that? Vote by mail. Vote by mail. It represents the greatest threat to him, and all he cares about is himself. That is a fact, and that is why he's against vote by mail.
So you were highly critical of mail-in voting, mail-in ballots for voting.
I think mail-in voting is horrible.
You voted by mail
corrupt.
in Florida's election last month, didn't you?
Sure, I could vote by mail for that.
How do you reconcile
Because I'm
that?
allowed to. Well, that's called out of state. You know why I voted? Because I happen to be in the White House and I won't be able to go to Florida to vote.
But let me just say, mailing within
well, there's a
state or
big
mailing
difference
outside
between
state?
somebody that's out of state and does a ballot and everything sealed, certified, and everything else. You see what you have to do with the certifications, and you get thousands and thousands of people sitting in somebody's living room signing ballots all over the place. No, I think that mail-in voting is a terrible thing. I think if you vote, you should go. And even the concept of early voting is not the greatest because a lot of things happen. But it's okay. But you should go and you should vote. I think you should go and you should vote. You look at what they do, where they grab thousands of mail-in ballots and they dump it. I'll tell you what, and I don't have to tell you, you can look at the statistics. There's a lot of dishonesty going along with mail-in voting, mail-in ballots.
Yeah, that's because they cheated in Georgia, but they got caught. They went to people, right, in poor neighborhoods, and they said, give us your absentee ballot, we'll mail it for you. Oh, and you know what else we'll do? We'll fill it out for you. That's why. That's why he's saying that. Because Republicans cheated. They got caught because you will always get caught. Because cheating in an election is a very high-risk, low-return proposition. Linda in Ohio. Linda in Ohio. Lloyd in California.
Hi, Randy. Trump does control FEMA, and lately he's been, according to the LA Times in a recent article, says that FEMA agents are going on to the runways of airports where governors have paid for and have contracts for personal protective equipment and ventilators, and confiscating those cargoes that are coming into states that need them, and not giving any explanation of what they're doing or where it's going. I don't know if they're giving receipts. During the Civil War, I think the Union Army gave receipts if they took some food or horses from people, but I don't think they're giving receipts in this case. And if we no longer have rule of law, if they're going into hospitals and stealing PPE from people that need it to stay alive, we no longer have rule of law. And when the business community and the money people figure out there's no more rule of law, that's going to collapse the economy. Because if you don't have rule of law, you don't have an economy. And that's where we're at. So and we need an immediate investigation on what's happening with FEMA and why they're stealing. It's turning into a smash and grab operation. That's not the way to run an economy. That's certainly not the way to run a democracy. And if that's what's happening, this regime needs to go, and then we need to have the impeachment and the investigation to lead to the impeachment. But we need the removal first, because if we're turning into a smash and grab,
can't have removal before impeachment. And what are you reading? Where are you getting this?
From the LA Times. The LA Times had an article.
Today?
On,
All right, let me go get it.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
The state of California has distributed 41 million masks, 41.4 million N95 masks. We've received just over 1 million from the federal government. It's not an indictment. It's not a cheap shot. At the end of the day, they don't have the masks at the national stockpile. We were going out getting 5 million here, 500,000 there, 200,000 there, competing against other states, competing against the federal government. We decided enough of the small ball. Let's use our purchasing power. Let's go at scale. And we built a consortium of nonprofits and a large manufacturer with appropriate contacts in Asia. And now we have the confidence that 150 plus million N95 masks, 50 plus million surgical masks will come in on a monthly basis starting in the next few weeks.
So I just want to send out a little message to Gavin Newsom to read the Los Angeles Times today, because the caller points out something that is really shocking, okay? I had not seen this, so thank you for calling me and telling me about it. It is there. It's in the LA Times. It's called Feds Are Seizing Coronavirus Supplies, Hospitals Say. And it's literally happening. FEMA is literally stealing the supplies that states have ordered, and they're redistributing them, and no one knows to where or what criteria. And the people in these states who are doing the ordering, like a Gavin Newsom or a Pritzker, you know, the governor of Illinois, they have no, they don't get a heads up that FEMA is going to come and take their supplies, and no one knows where they're going. No one knows where they're going. This is unbelievable. This is happening in 7 different states. The interviews have been conducted by the Los Angeles Times reporters. It says hospital and clinic officials in 7 states described the seizures in interviews over the past week. FEMA is not publicly reporting these acquisitions, despite the outlay of millions of dollars of taxpayer money, nor has the administration detailed how it decides which supplies to seize and where to reroute them. The first paragraph of this article says, although President Trump has directed states and hospitals to secure what supplies they can, the federal government is quietly seizing orders, leaving medical supply providers across the country in the dark about where the material is going and how they can get what they need to deal with the pandemic. They talk about Florida, a large medical system, group of hospitals. They placed this giant order for thermometers, taken away. Massachusetts, they didn't know where their order of masks went. Peace Health, which is a 10-hospital system in Washington, Oregon, and Alaska, they had a shipment of testing supplies taken. FEMA, the LA Times called FEMA, and a FEMA representative said, we're working with the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Defense, and we've developed a system for identifying needed supplies from vendors and distributing them equitably. So they're not denying that they're taking these, but they won't say what supplies are going to what states or how they're choosing to seize supplies. That's freaky. Can you imagine this? This is what Pritzker was saying, right?
What the White House has done is created, they call this the air bridge, where they're bringing stuff back from China to the United States, and then they're delivering it to private companies in the United States, not to the states. And they're letting all of us bid against each other for those goods that are owned by the private companies. So we've just gone around all that and gone directly to manufacturers wherever we could.
And so they're ordering them. Gavin Newsom sat on Rachel's show last night and said that he is contracted with a Asian company to provide 500 million masks a month. And now you got FEMA coming in. This happened in Texas too. Joe Camacho, who heads the Texas Association of Community Health Centers, said they tried to place an order for just 20,000 masks, and his supplier, who agreed to provide them, said, "Your order has been taken." And so the Texas Association of Community Health Centers head, Jose Camacho, was flabbergasted, and he said several of the member clinics are primary care centers. They're supposed to be taking the pressure off the hospitals. They're struggling to stay open because they don't have the protective equipment. He said, everyone had told us we're supposed to be on our own because Trump said you can't rely on him for supplies. So you order them, and then this happens, and you just sit there wondering, what else can you do? You can't fight the federal government. So it is happening that states are ordering materials, obviously from Asia. They're coming here, and they're being intercepted by FEMA for the president's decision about where to put them. This is freaky. This is just freaky. Here's Gavin Newsom from last night explaining, that he understands he's on his own.
The state of California has distributed 41 million masks, 41.4 million N95 masks. We've received just over 1 million from the federal government. It's not an indictment. It's not a cheap shot. At the end of the day, they don't have the masks at the national stockpile. We were going out getting 5 million here, 500,000 there, 200,000 there, competing against other states, competing against the federal government. We decided enough of the small ball. Let's use our purchasing power. Let's go at scale. And we built a consortium of nonprofits and a large manufacturer with appropriate contacts in Asia. And now we have the confidence that 150 plus million N95 masks, 50 plus million surgical masks will come in on a monthly basis starting in the next few weeks.
Better be careful, Gavin, Mr. Governor. You better be careful, because this appears to be what Trump is doing with the Defense Production Act. That allows the president to compel the production of this vital equipment in a national emergency. It also allows federal agencies to place the orders for these critical materials and see that those orders get priority over orders from private companies or state and local governments. So here he is directing state and local governments to go ahead and contract for, and they are doing it. And, because he didn't want to be, what did he say? He wasn't a shipping clerk, right? And so they should do it on their own. And now he's using the Defense Production Act in some perverted way to take those supplies and take them for himself for the feds, overriding the critical materials that state and local governments have ordered. I don't know what to say about this at all, except it is happening. Are we ready to say that he's literally killing off the blue states on purpose and stockpiling for the red states? Are we there? Are we willing to say that? Just a question. It's not a statement, it's a question. An educated question. Somebody asked that at his nightly rally.
is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
The UK called today and they wanted to know would it be possible to get 200, and we're going to work it out. We got to work it out. They've been great partners, United Kingdom, and we're going to work it out for them. So they wanted 200. They needed them desperately.
He's going to send 200 ventilators to the UK. I don't know what he's doing. All I could tell you is he has presented himself and has exposed himself as a lying, opportunistic, self-absorbed, money-grubbing bully. And so I wouldn't be surprised if he is literally allowing people to die in immigrant communities, in African-American communities, in communities that vote Democratic, and stockpiling, stuff for people who, will vote for him. I wouldn't be surprised. I can't say that that's happening, but I really do wish that somebody with White House press corps credentials who gets selected for the, 10 seats that are now available, ask him the question about FEMA's seizures of the state orders, state and local orders of everything from ventilators to masks to gloves to tests. They are literally... I'm so grateful to that caller, for Lloyd, right? Or Floyd? Floyd? Lloyd. Thank you, Lloyd. That's shocking. Steve in Washington.
Oh, hi.
Hey.
Yeah. Okay, so talking about Trump, he likes to say the quiet parts out loud. That's why he's probably such a crappy businessman and a loser. Yeah, he said it about voting. And Jared flipped up the other day and he said, that stuff is theirs. It's ours. Okay, hang on a second. He said that's ours. And, the Trumpsters, they view themselves as an aristocracy. They're an aristocracy. And I think that's what Jared meant when he said that about those PPEs being ours. It belongs to the aristocracy. It goes to what he's saying, the previous caller said about the seizures. That's all I wanted to say.
All right. Well, thank you. Catherine in Maryland.
Hi, Randy. Just what you were talking about. I was just reading an article by Katie Porter, who said that he's actually making money. He said the value of U.S. ventilator exports jumped from 22.7% from January to February, and it wasn't only ventilators. They found that in February 2020, the value of U.S. mask exports to China was 1,094% higher than the 2019 average. So that's just plays into what he's doing about that. But the other thing I wanted to mention was Trump in 2019 put a ban on using fetal tissue for research, and we've had 15 attorneys general write to him saying that this is very important. This research is very important to develop a vaccine because they can do it in mice rather than having to have human trials, and asking him to lift his ban, but he's not doing that.
Right.
And just one other quick question. We found out that climate change, the carbon footprint has been reduced 5% by not running cars and planes.
Yeah.
And if we can sacrifice like this, once this is over, I think it would be very reasonable for states to say 1 day a week you have to take public transportation.
No, it'll never happen. There isn't there just isn't public transportation for people to take. There just isn't.
Well, right.
You live in the Northeast where, there's plenty of transportation, but most of this country, our infrastructure blows.
Exactly, but I was thinking like Los Angeles, it would be an infrastructure program to build public transportation and get people back to work and get the economy going, I thought that, that would be a good thing.
Yeah, it would. If we could build out our infrastructure so that people could move, without burning fossil fuels, wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, exactly.
But he was very adamant the other day, because he's anti-science in every way, shape, and form. And so he was saying, oh, no, I really want an infrastructure package. I just don't want a Green New Deal. Now, I have no idea why we would build new infrastructure and not make it smart and not make it green. I mean, what would the point be? But he's adamant about not building anything renewable, not building anything using, he hates windmills. They cause cancer, So, I want to see, I want to see this country move into the 21st century so much, but it's now 1340. Olga in California.
Randi, you present yourself so glowing like a seraphim. Thank you for that.
Oh, my.
I want to talk about the racial disparities, which is really old news.
Yeah.
Really, in the public health arena.
Yeah.
But this virus is fascinating in one way, terribly fascinating, that it's any crack in our society, any little problem, this thing is just
exacerbating it. Yeah.
Cutting right in. Okay, so I posit to you that secretly, really, we have a caste system.
Well, yeah.
3/5, right? It started that way. There's a caste that's supposed to be the servants. There's a caste that's supposed to benefit from the service. It's not a caste. It's not we've made so much progress. They make them. Why don't they pick themselves up? The caste system continues.
Of course it does. That's what income inequality is, a euphemism.
Based on,
No, it's a euphemism for a caste system.
That's right, but we got to start calling it that because I don't think we see ourselves that way at all.
Oh, I do. I do. I think smart thinking people who care about the health of
I know you did.
Yeah, and I think there are more of us than there are of people who don't understand that.
One
that's
might
true.
hope.
No, I believe that, and that's why he won't let people have access to ballots in a meaningful way, right? He's got to trash the whole idea of having access to a ballot. So
I don't think we need to be surprised by what they do. It's
I'm
just
not
be
surprised.
This way.
I'm not
I'll
surprised.
Bet you they have documents written how they're going to save the red states. Written down right now. Plans to do it. That's why they got to get rid of their CIs. This is going to leak. I just bet you.
Well, that's why he's replacing all the inspector generals with people.
That's right. I just bet you they're on the tape right now. They're moving to do it. They've got it all written down.
It's so.
I'll bet you.
Me too. I mean, look, it's so corrupt. It's obviously corrupt. Everything he says is a lie. Everything he says is bad for America.
What he says is exactly backwards. So what he says is what he means. Ooh. I feel like I'm in a frappe. I have been hit and blenderized.
It's a bad movie, is what it is. This is the kind of movie I would never watch. Okay, and now I'm living in it. What was that District movie?
District 9?
Yeah, it's District 9. Right, and I Howard, you got to, and I watched the first.
Neil Bocamper, great film.
I know, everybody tells me that. I just can't. 28 days later, I don't. Why watch it? Why watch it when the government is always going to come to the rescue at the end, and here it doesn't apply. It doesn't. The government is as corrupt as anybody ever dreamed an American government would be. And they're going to say, well, all presidents lie. No one has ever done what this president is doing presently. No one has ever diminished a pandemic, public health, death. He likes saying death. Every night, there's going to be a lot of death. It's going to be a lot of death. And when you listen to other people talk about the situation in which the cities and the states are finding, they say, we lost a lot of people. Please remember, these numbers are people. They all have faces. They're all human beings. They try and human. No, not him. Not him. Death is all death. And his base freaking loves that. Because they think it's happening to other people that aren't them. And in their pro-life universe, that's okay. But like I said, if you find yourself voting with a mask on or standing in line for an unemployment application with a mask on and you still vote for this man, you need help.